Sunday Gospel reading, Latin Rite, Matthew chapter 22, verses 1 to 14. Once more Jesus spoke to them in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his slaves to call those who had been invited to the wedding banquet, but they wouldn't come. Again he sent other slaves, saying, 'Tell those who have been invited, look, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fat cows have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they made light of it and went away, one to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his slaves, maltreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his troops, destroyed those murderers, and burned their city. Then he said to his slaves, 'The wedding is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Go therefore into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet.' Those slaves went out into the streets and gathered all whom they found, both good and bad, so the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing a wedding robe. And he said to them, 'Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding robe?' And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, 'Bind him hand and foot and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.' Word be with you. Go therefore into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet." And he said to him, "Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding robe?" Today what we have for our reflection is in fact two parables. The parable of the wedding guest and that of the man not wearing the wedding robe. Both parables deal with being invited to the kingdom. The first one was to inform the chief priests and elders how tragic it was to refuse to accept the invitation by Jesus to come to the banquet of salvation. It was the final and last effort on the part of Jesus to win them over, but they refused. They were the ones who had the knowledge of the law, in addition to their high social rank. People who had farms, businesses, or interests which they placed ahead of the invitation to the kingdom. Moreover, they mistreated the slaves. Obviously, those invited were not worthy. God's invitation to the kingdom is irrevocable and is always open, but its addresses must be sought in another social level. Go therefore into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet. These are the places of people who have no home, no steady employment, or no businesses in the city, the poor and the outcasts, those considered as ignorant and sinful by the religious leaders of the people. Matthew adds that in the main streets they gathered all whom they found, both good and bad, so the wedding hall was filled with guests. This is to make clear that people are invited not because of their merits, but rather because of the gratuitous goodness of God toward the poor, the lost, the sinners. God's grace transforms the uninvited into the privileged addressees of the heavenly banquet, the kingdom, the salvation. In Matthew, unlike in Luke's parallel text, the parable continues with another theme. Someone turns up for the banquet without a wedding robe. Accepting the invitation to the kingdom requires that those invited should be prepared. They need to wear the wedding garment of grace, unstained by spots of serious sin, The parable is also an appropriate image of the Holy Eucharist. Holy Eucharist is our best opportunity for giving ourselves to God and acknowledging God's Lordship over our lives. Holy Mass is God's greatest gift of love for us. Greatest gift of love because it is Jesus Himself whom God gives us for our salvation. But the guest spoken of in the Gospel text was being too casual. He is the image of those who come to Mass in the church casually, unprepared, not in love with and charity with their neighbors, gossiping instead of making themselves ready for the time of worship. Now coming to ourselves, do we make full preparation for the Holy Mass and our communion? Those who accept the gracious invitation of God without truly responding to its obligations should not feel like patronizing those who have refused it. Remember, there is not one of us whose wedding robe is immaculate. Prayer. Gracious God, I am too often an unworthy guest at your divine table. I come to you carrying my doubt and anxiety, my resentment of other guests, my indifference to seeking your full purpose for me. Have mercy on my weakness and bring me to the right mind and a true heart in Holy Mass, so that I may not fall under judgment when I taste your heavenly banquet. Amen.